Hello. Anyway, I was asked to come up with a number of subjects for sessions to be produced at Sheffield. And I keep reading articles about technology and all sorts of various problems, technology, platforms, music cue sheets, M&Es, all sorts of issues with technology. And I thought, we can't be at a festival without talking of where technology lies in the whole creative process. So as session producer and chair today, I'm going to do my best with my co-speakers to bring to you a few of the issues, a few of the solutions, a few of the experiences that we all have had, and then hopefully you will also come to us with your questions and your experiences. So you can leave here and say, God, this is great. I got some tip that's going to be really making my life much easier. So I will let the speakers introduce themselves one by one, and then we'll have presentations, clips, PowerPoint, and then we'll go to a interactive exchange with you. Okay, so Paula.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming. My name is Paula Vaccaro. I am a film producer and originally in what I call another life, a journalist. And I'm here to share my experiences mainly as a film producer, of course. And thank you. So just we intro and we pass it on.
Hi, my name's Anita. I come from a company called Refine, and Refine really are the last end of the process. So when people have made their films, TV programs, or documentaries, it rests with us to deliver them internationally in the perfect format, whether that's tape or digital.
My name's Edward Caffrey. I'm from Journeyman Pictures. We're an international distributor acquiring about 3 to 4 hours of content a week. We work a lot with kind of one-man Helmer war reporter kind of teams, so we're used to dealing with filmmakers who don't have big budgets for post-production and getting their deliverables up to kind of broadcast standard.
I'm Sam Neal. I work for Defence, Amsterdam-based distribution company. My job is to ingest any titles into the catalogue, QC them, and make them internationally available at international standard to our clients.
So one thing that happened to me recently as I was planning this session, I called up a very venerable English institution based in London. And I said, do producers come to you with issues related to technology that you then have to take to broadcasters? And the person I was speaking to, whom I probably had chased a few too many times, got rather probably impatient and said to me, let producers produce and distributors distribute. And that really got me going. But I know that most of you probably, I don't know, well, are you producers or most of you are producers in the room? Okay. So I think that it was important for me to have, through with Paola, having a producer, so somebody like you on this panel, to bridge the gap. So Paola, you're the first diplomat at this table.
The first thing I'm going to say is let producers produce and let distributors distribute, if that suits you. I think it's really important for producers to get on the ball of what's going on in technology. That's my first thing. I think distribution, there is a model that we have seen with BritDoc a lot, and is this big ball, then all these arrows that go down from the program to distribution, and the arrow is the same. We deliver the content we produce, and then when the arrow comes back, you have sales agents and you have distributors, and the model is really pretty difficult to sustain, because when it comes back to us producers, we barely see any money back. So unless we unless our job is paid at the very beginning when we are producing, is a very difficult model, especially for documentaries or for smaller films. So I think that from the producer perspective, we really need to push that and try to get really on board of distribution and things like that, which I'm sure my colleagues here may agree or not. So I'm going to share with you 2 technical challenges that I had in my producer career so far. One of them is a feature film, and the other one is a documentary. I'll start with the documentary, which has to do more with technology, in a straightforward post-production type thing. I'll share a very, very rough clip so you know what it's about.
Nothing here now but the recording, manipulated by computers.
We're doing this big event. Why don't you document it? And he did. So he trashed his 20-minute senior NYU Film School student project, and he allocated all of those resources to documenting murders.
The road to the Western lands is by definition the most dangerous road in the world, for it is a journey beyond death, beyond the basic God.
It was dramatic. First of all, it won for documentary, and second of all, it was just really nice to see it on a big screen.
His life was obviously moving into fast forward. Tokyo, Rome, Cologne, Berlin, Paris, New York City, and Los Angeles.
Just like this river, I've been running.
I've been working on it over 5 years now. It'll be 6 years when it's presented in Los Angeles. It's like a comet that falls. It's something that happens once. It can never happen again.
See Randy over there, he's supposed to go over here.
Howard was obviously on his way up. Matt Dillon, Madonna, and he was obviously on his way up big time.
All right, let's try it again. Let's try to get all the way. Very nice. Let's go. Okay, now wait, how about you? Okay.
His behavior during the making of that movie was really very interesting. And part of the reason why it made it just so difficult, he just had this beaming smile on his face. That's the Howard that I really remember, really warm and sensitive guy. It's captured in that picture the first time he held you, when you were young. I guess what you're feeling ultimately is an expression of a seed that was sown so many years ago by your uncle, who showed you the magic of movies.
Okay, we can. Great. So sorry, it was a bit too long, maybe. So this film has enormous challenges in terms of technology. Here you have a director who died in '89, who left behind 300 assets of film, video, audio. That's been preserved, or not actually, in a basement in New York City. On top of that, you have various mixes of photographs and home videos and VHS, different type of technology. So the ideal situation, and then also the preservation of his work, the Burroughs film, which is a seminal key film, the only film ever about and with William Burroughs that Burroughs really created as well, and the second one about Robert Wilson. So in an ideal world, we producers, we will have an aggregator, a distributor, a sales agent will come and say, I love your project, or a commissioner saying, I'll give you this amount of money and you will make it. But that's not the way we raise finance, that's not the way it happens. So when you find a project like this, just the technology to make you create the program could be so expensive that you need to start thinking, how am I going to get through as an independent producer? Like, how am I going to digitize, preserve, respool, clean 200 cans of film, 96 hours of audio? It's all super relevant to the project, and it's all even of important cultural legacy, because in this case it's a lot of famous people as well. So one of the things that we did is we went to Kickstarter to remaster the Burroughs film, and we partnered with a post-production house, Prime Focus, that you all know because they also partner with Sheffield. And basically, I made sure they understood what was my intention. And I said, I really need to rescue this film. The film is not going to even be able to be shown. It's just about remastering it and having it in a format that will allow people to see it. Right now, it's a can in a vault in MoMA, the only one in the world that had never even touched a projector. So my first advice, if you like, if you ever come across to a project like that, is technology and the people facilitating technology. Sometimes it looks like you need a lot of resources to get to it, but there are ways around it. I think crowdfunding is helping, but also partnering with people is super important. In this case, this project also, because it has so much material, of course, we're thinking about how we can make that material available to people, and we are creating an online space for that material to live in. And we're partnering with bigger institutions and saying, with institutions that are also trying to rescue work from filmmakers. And we are saying to them, we will code, we will create this vessel, so you can also have it for other filmmakers to work around. And I think that is super important. Like, how can we create any technology around our work as content creators, and we can share? But we can share between us as a community of filmmakers, so what cost me 100 won't cost you 100. And so in that way, we're building blocks, but we're building blocks together. It needs to be a bit niched, if you like. It needs to be a bit themed. It can't be like anyone, because otherwise it just won't work. But for example, in my case, Howard died of AIDS in '89. So I'm talking with Visual AIDS, which is an institution in New York that rescues work of artists who died of AIDS. And they have done a lot of work around sculptures and photography, but they haven't done video. So I thought I have a niche with them. They haven't done it. If I put this content and this project to their service, this could be a kickstart way for them to start aggregating video to their own platform. And that is kind of what's happening. So then once that platform is created, other filmmakers who died of AIDS, in the case of our platform, will be able to use that. And just a tiny, tiny note on the, just a final thing on the other project that I could share with you that could be important. This is a feature film that I did for barely £50,000, first-time filmmaker, black and white, 5D, I want to shoot, I want to shoot, I want to shoot type of filmmaker situation. I work with auteurs a lot, so I really respect when they have a huge drive to tell their stories, and I like very bold people and very insistent people. So we went for it, and it was a really, really tiny film. So there are several ways to go around and make your film visible in a sea of films and content that we all drown off these days, especially if you don't have stars and you don't have celebrities. And there is the old relevance that producers generally do. Oh, let's go to a festival, and then we win a project, and then we become like the wonder project from a film festival. I think that model is kind of more and more difficult, even for films that make it great at festivals. So my idea when I finished that was to start thinking about strategic ways to show the film. And I realized there was an empty niche, actually. I was watching the trailer of the film on an iPad, and it looked really made for it. Like the way it was framed, the way the 5D works with a very short focus. So I realized there hadn't been a film made exclusively and only for iPad. So for a film that was a £50,000 film, probably we will not rescue the money ever. Anyway, one way or another. But this gave us a lot of control, and it allowed us to have the film downloaded in 24 countries. We did a premiere in London on a red double-decker bus. We partnered with the London Transport Museum, and I went to a PR agency and I said, I want a stunt. I have £1,000. And so we put a red carpet, and we have press in the Metro, Evening Standard, The Guardian, and 17 other press links from all over the world. From Gizmodo to people online were saying the Silver Goat made app history, and we became the first film in the world created exclusively for the iPad. So I think technology is out there, and it's also for us to look at the niche and to the opportunities to make it relevant. Suddenly, that little film that would have been lost, now sometimes I find myself and I say, well, I did this, and this tiny film, Silver Goat. Oh, you made Silver Goat. It looks great on the iPad, it's black and white. And it gave a lot of relevance. People say, oh, you made a lot of money. I didn't make a dime. Like, my statements are hilarious. But I never share how many downloads were created. I do share the fact that it was seen in many countries, that we had a lot of press, and that made that filmmaker more relevant, and his work. And by the way, he is the director of Smash, the other film that I was sharing. Because I think we can't really share the measures of ticket sales these days, because we are in early days, so I'll be careful with that. But I think technology is out there, and we really have to see how we partner. I mean, it's the same old job still. Producers need to create this partnering scenario, and this time, technology is also a player. Thank you.
Okay, well. Thank you, Paula. I have two questions, one for now, and then the other one I'll come back later in terms of producing for iPad. What does it mean in certain technological? But your film, was it actually dubbed into foreign languages?
No, it was only in English, and I would have loved to have a partner to create that dubbing, because a lot of people came back to us and said, oh, we want to see it in another language. But there was, of course, a moment where you said, there is only so much you can do. Okay. When you are a tiny company, when you're spreading yourself thin with two or three projects, and then it was kind of time to let go. I'm not discarding that one day someone is going to come and say, we'll translate your film, let's brand it.
Because I was going to lead, this might be a perfect lead into what Sam has to say about making a film available for international distribution.
Oh,
because
if you have the means,
in terms of making a film, is obviously allowing a greater amount of people to be able to see it. So having films available on different platforms, this is what we live in, and this is where we're going more and more. But we'll, each of us will go in deep.
The film is free on iPad now. Anyone who wants it can get it.
Because one thing that we've talked about among each other before is how do you get your film seen by, so iPad, perhaps, yes, people can download it in English, but if you wanted your film to be shown in different countries, they'll say, well, we want either a subtitle, but most likely a dubbed version. So this is where, Sam, you're going to be coming in, because you're going to explain to us what are the basic rules, things to plan from the very, very first moment you sit down and you're going to say, how much money do I have to make? Do I have to make my film? How do I budget my film? Because you're going to think, where is your film going to live, and not a short life? So Sam, please, explain to our, audience the power. Oh, there you have to come up.
You have to come up.
You have to come up. You wanted to do your lectern, or you want me to bring it to you? No, I can do the service.
It's okay. It's good afternoon, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, I work for Off the Fence. We're a production company and a distribution company. So my job is to ingest all of the titles that we either produce internally or we buy in externally. And it's my job to make sure they're QC'd to a good standard, to make sure everything's good for international distribution. As a company, we produce our own material, of course, and we co-produce. So we're very aware of what we have to do to bring a product to the marketplace. We've got many offices throughout the world, and we very much tailor our product to the areas that we work in. Singapore, we work with local people in Singapore and what have you. These are our key clients. So again, we know the clients that we work with, we represent them. We have to make sure that we do the best for their titles as well. So when I'm ingesting their titles, I work with them very closely to make sure that their titles have the maximum potential within the international marketplace. Many of our clients here, and they all have specific requirements of a high international standard, many of them. So what I have to do as a head of operations is make sure what we bring in is of a high enough standard to suit all broadcasters, not one broadcaster, but many broadcasters. So what I thought I'd do, give you an idea of how we look at things in Off the Fence in terms of production by using one of our latest productions. And it's called Wildest Latin America, and we co-produced this with Discovery, Arte, and Hi-Fi Blue Ant in Canada. Now, if you look at it, we had actually 3 sets of technical specifications that we had to work to, 4 sets of masters that we had to deliver. As a distributor, we take 52-minute seamless versions generally. It's an international version, and we accept this in ProRes HQ, a digital file. We've gone to a digital workflow. It's very much a digital workflow nowadays. To deliver to Discovery, of course, their specification was a 44-minute cut to clock, and it was delivered in HD Cam SR. Now, cut to clock, we know what that means. It means that specific advertising spots within the program are carved out. Arte have a different cut to clock. They've got 43-minute HD Cam SR again, and Hi-Fi took the international 52-minute version. So it's really important to look at the technical specifications at the beginning of a production and agree commonly accepted frame rates and types of camera. It's just extremely important. So I would get the international version through. In this instance, it was Wildest Latin America, but it could very easily be, many other titles. And I have certain specific criteria that I look to, of course, when I'm looking at an international version. And, all of the titles that we distribute have to be EBU standard or SMPTE standard. You're talking PAL, NTSC, fairly simple. They're both compatible with each other. There's no problem there. Commercial hours, commercial half hours, 52 minutes, 50 minutes, 26 minutes, 24 minutes. There's some leeway. But in truth, a 1 minute duration can be an international version. It doesn't have to be 52 minutes, as long as it's got all of the elements that we are talking about. The other issue, of course, is seamless. Cut to clock. Cut to clock really is very specific to each broadcaster. So even if it is a commercial channel we would be selling to, they have their own cut to clock. Therefore, they will not take someone else's cut to clock. They would expect a seamless version, 52-minute seamless version. The other issue that's often forgotten is when a title is created, a texted title with English, let's say it's English, and it comes to me and we have it QC'd and we find out there's no textless elements. They go, yeah, but why do you need textless elements? You're like, well, if it's a French broadcaster, they'll want to put their French. If it's Chinese, they'll want to put Mandarin. You have to, for every texted element there is in a program, you must deliver a textless element. It's very important. One area possibly is maps, where we can maybe talk about later. And the other big issue here is audio. Audio is central to what an international version is. We have obviously an original full mix. It doesn't matter which language it's in, really, as long as it's at correct levels and within the standards. But we must always receive a full mix minus the narration. The narration is removed from the full mix at an undipped level. And that's central. You know, if we don't have that as a minimum, it's not easy to sell this internationally. It really isn't. If you have the audio split tracks, of course we can create it, or a broadcaster can create it, but you're talking of 500, 600, 700 euros to do that. So it's really important to get that set in stone at the very beginning. And the other big issue, which is one that's the bane of my life, that has to be said, is the text and graphics have to be 4:3 safe. A lot of you guys, no doubt, are producing for HD, and if you think about it, HD, 16:9 anamorphic television shouldn't be an issue. But the trouble is, if you want to go beyond HD channels, if you want to distribute internationally, there's still an awful lot of people out there with 4:3 televisions. Maybe not in the UK or in the States, but certainly other territories you will find it's an issue. And in actual fact, in many of the technical standards, still in France, in Germany, they must have 4:3 text safe. Hopefully this will disappear soon, but at the moment it's a technical standard. So these are the basic elements that you need. If you want your title to be easily available to an international audience, because I promise you, if our clients find that these elements are missing, we have a big problem. In fact, we wouldn't even offer these to some of our clients if it didn't have all of these, because they just wouldn't accept. We would have rejections, and there would be a cost. There would be a cost to the broadcaster and a cost to our reputation. So we are very careful in ensuring that the technical standard is high enough before we even offer it to clients. The other area that we have to look at is support materials, and I've got to say this is becoming increasingly important. When I first started in this industry, it was, original script. We have it here, the original script, English, always English. Maybe a client is willing to take a French language title, but in order to do their own translation, they will expect an English version, and an English version minimum as a script, a translation. Music cue sheet, integral. You can't distribute a title without it. Credits, synopsis, long and short. High-res images with an image information sheet. That never used to get asked for. Now it's being asked for almost by all of our broadcasters. Footage log is another thing. Errors and omissions policy, which I'll maybe put to the end. And the thing is about this, we're talking metadata here. And what we're finding is increasingly, especially with the online platforms, metadata is becoming central. They want as much information as we can give them. And we're talking director, we're talking who writes it, but all the things that really in the credit list you'll find. But metadata is very important, so think about it. Think about having photographers on your shoot. Think about giving as much information as you can. It just helps in the sale. The important thing is here to check the tech spec for broadcasters' requirements. It's just important. Don't be left without one of these elements, because it can cost money. And errors and omissions policy is the big one here. It used to be an errors and omissions policy is nothing more than an insurance policy against the title. And it used to be very much a North American thing only. But increasingly people are asking for them. And what's happening is, especially your Nat Geos, your Discoveries, any of your networks are asking for E&O policies. If we can't give an E&O policy, they will not buy it. Simple as that. Now, an E&O policy, if you leave this cost to the very end, you get stung for 3,000 and 4,000 because that's how much it costs. But without it, it can be quite difficult to sell to the bigger clients. So it's worth thinking about. It's worth thinking about budgeting for this earlier in your production process, because it's important. If you want your product to have legs, especially internationally, it's important. Other issues to look out for, again, when we're talking about international reversioning, none of these would stop a sale necessarily, I think, but it's important to be aware that it has an effect on your title. And that's a number of talking heads. If you've got 20 or 30 different people talking in your documentary and we're wanting to sell it to France, who are obliged to put it into the French language, in France, for instance. You're talking, you know, how many actors to do that? How much is that going to cost them to make their French version? That will be taken into consideration when they're looking at your title to acquire it. As I say, it may not be if it's a really good title, they'll take it, but it will be something that they'll look to. Moving graphics and the ability of the client to use the graphics. If you're having moving graphics within a title coming in and out of the shot with text, be aware it's going to another language. Be aware that it has to be able to get used. And often we find, oh, well, we don't have the graphics package anymore. Okay, so we're having, you know, a graphic coming across the screen in English, you know, in and out, and there's nothing we can do about it. That has an effect also, and that is a big issue. Different aspects ratio within a title. Yeah, we get lots of rejections because there's a 4:3 shot in the title. If it's archive, it's usually not a problem, but you have to be sure that all of your title is the same aspect ratio wherever possible. It can be editorial, and we usually get away with it, but be aware, it is an issue. Number of textless elements. This is an issue. If you have 40 or 50 textless elements in a title, you know, it's a separate textless tape that you require, which generally means just delivering 2 tapes as a distributor. That's costly. People pay, we have to pay for the money. The producer ends up paying, or what have you. So, number of textless elements, minimize them where you possibly can. Bumpers, if these are present, and that's coming up, you know, coming up on, that kind of thing, these can be seen as making a title non-seamless. And a lot of, they just don't like them. And again, that would just not be considered by a lot of clients. So the fewer bumpers you have, the better. Or at least create the title that you can lift them out easily. That's a big issue. If you can lift them out easily, it's no problem. And another couple of things, good technical support. It's just, you know, I'm not a technical person, and I couldn't do what I do without a good technical support. And so I would say to you, get a good post-production facility, find someone who knows what they're talking about. You know, as early on in the process as you can, be your distributor or the person that's going to be, looking at this later on down the line. Get in there early, speak to them, talk to them, allow them to advise you on how to go forward, because it is important. You want to spend your money up front, not at the end of the process. At the end of the process, your money's spent usually, and that's the issue in production. When I say, well, I need this, yeah, but I don't have any money, we've finished our budget. Yeah, well, we can't distribute it if we don't have this. So think about this up front. And the other thing we should really be talking about, you know, is something that's come up, and that's 4K Ultra HD. The truth is, it's so new. There's very little out there that I can tell you about it as such. We've noticed it's starting to sneak into some of the co-pro technical specs and acquisition technical specs. Be aware it's coming, and it's extra cost. So it may be that you're going to be forced by broadcasters to go down this route. Now, I know what it was like in HD when we went down the route of HD. The costs were high at the very beginning. They're coming down now, and it's now basically the same as it was for standard definition when I started. You know, it's okay now. Still expensive, but okay. You know, high HD, Ultra HD is going to be expensive. So we have to be aware it's coming. Basically, well, that's everything I've got to say really in the matter. As I say, just, you know, take your time at the beginning of a production, get good technical support, speak to a distributor as early on in the process as you can, and take advice. And try and make your title as broadly acceptable to as many broadcasters as you can. And that will maximise not only the profits from the title, but the number of people seeing the title. And that's what we'll want. We want people to see your product, because you put enough time and energy in it that you want people to see it, I think. So, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. when you listen to this sort of presentation, do you say to yourself, I know it all? Or is this things that you say, oh my God, this is scary, I'm going to change jobs? Does anybody have a reaction to this? I mean, this, there's a lot of stuff to think about. But I worked for BBC Worldwide for 10 years, and other companies, and American companies before that, and the Americans were in their little land far away, and when we come back to them and say, well, yeah, you talked about maps. Well, if the title's on the map and you're doing a great historical piece, I mean, any documentary, any film will have, a reality that if you want to sell it overseas, you've got to think about this. And I remember having arguments on the phone with American producers. I said, you've got to take it off, you've got to change it, because, the broadcaster, and then the broadcaster will say, if you don't do this for me, I won't take your films. So, it happens often.
Yeah.
And,
I think with maps is a strange one, because people have this idea that, London is London in every language. Actually, no, it's not. Paris is Paris, and no, it's not. When you have a name on a map, it does change. And remember, it's not all, in English. It can be in Arabic, or it can be in Chinese. They need and require to put their own language on maps. There is one argument about archive maps. There's nothing you can really do about them. Exactly. That's a different thing. But generally speaking, it's important. It's a really important thing to them.
We sold Teletubbies, so this is not a documentary, but the French wanted to translate Teletubbies, so you had to think about how you film Teletubbies. But so Edward, you're a distributor. You've got a platform. You're working with films, with current affairs. So what can you share of your experience?
Well, we work with a lot of small teams, small budgets, who don't have a lot to spend on technical stuff. A lot of them are kind of editing on their Macs and shoving stuff across hard drives. And the one thing I'd say, following on from Sam, is a lot of it boils down to maintaining the integrity of those deliverables, maintaining your audio tracks, and also a big one is maintaining the video quality. And this would boil down to, very simply, try to transcode as little as possible. Try to keep things in native frame rates. I might actually just use my presentation.
Yes.
This slide will help. Yeah. So if you've produced your film in NTSC, for instance, of course you want to convert it to PAL so that you have it for all of the countries that are operating in PAL. But at the same time, there are many countries out there that accept NTSC. So if you've gone to PAL and lost your NTSC master, you're going to make it really difficult to sell to any of those territories that operate in NTSC, because you're re-encoding and you're going to lose quality. And so you've got to remember that every time you're changing the format of your file, you're losing quality. And it's really important to maintain that integrity the whole way down the line. At the same time, storage is a huge issue. So, I mean, we would always say, ProRes 422 HQ, is a great way to maintain it. But, if you're trying to deliver by FTP or anything like that, there are a number of codecs you can use to encode to, which will leave you with not too much file loss, quality loss, but with files that are much smaller. So we use the H.264 codec quite a lot, and a lot of the encoding for this kind of stuff can be done through software that's not that expensive. So even through freeware like MPEG Streamclub, if you were dealing with just one hour, 52-minute film that you've edited in Final Cut, it's very cheap for you to do that, and a lot of you can even export it straight out of Final Cut, and it's as simple as just making sure that you don't compress each frame. You just untick that box, and it's going to really help in terms of keeping the quality of your master. So as I said, a lot of our deliveries, especially because we work in current affairs, are moving towards FTP or Aspera, because we literally get the film in, and in 10 days broadcasters want it there so that they can reversion and turn it around in 2 or 3 weeks. From Syria to Turkey, that's what they're looking at. They want to be quick. So that's where size is always an issue. And so like I said, try to maintain that integrity with your master, and then try to work out a format with your broadcaster that's going to work for them, and they're going to be able to manage. So, not everyone can take H.264. Maybe some people want MXFs. You've got to kind of interact with your broadcasters to make sure you're providing them with exactly what they need. So just to sum up, like Sam said, he's covered most of it. You want to keep your clean picture, keep your clean audio, and as much as you can, keep that material that you've got in its original format. As soon as you lose the quality and then you lose those masters, you're never going to get it back. And a lot of as the quality goes up, like you were saying about 4K, the bar is just getting higher and higher and higher. And if you've got, if you shot a film in HD and now you've only got an SD master, I mean, that's really sad, because there's so many outlets that are going to be cut off to you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I mean, coming, as I was saying earlier, from a completely, and when Sam, you said you're not a technology man, I said, how dare he say that? I'm not the technology person on this table. You're much more technologically savvy than I am. But, and I respect, and half of actually what you said, I said, oh my God, do I actually quite grasp what it means? But anyway, I just know how crucial it is. But if we do all of that you say that we're going to do, where will be 3 years down the road? Is it going to be simpler, more complex? Because are there not more, broadcast? And Anita, this is when you're going to come in. But I read all the time about new platforms and the fact that nobody seems to quite agree with a standard form of not deliverables, but standard forms of many things. And is it going to get easier? Is it going to get more complicated? Are we chasing after something that's going faster and faster?
Well, I think actually we're being led by the nose sometimes by the people that are developing these formats, because there's no standardization. We had this with HDCam and the HDD5, for instance, where, it was like, well, there's your two formats. We're like, okay, so which one's going to win out? So you have to bet on both of them, hoping that one of them, or you make a decision which one's going to win through. And HDD5 disappeared. Excuse me. So it's just annoying that we're continually being given. Look, we've had 3D recently.
Yeah.
Where is that really? I mean, where is that? We're now being given 4K. I know that I live in Amsterdam and we get HD TV. It's actually not even HD yet, and yet we're not at full HD, and yet we're being sold 4K. And we're being told to go and get new 4K television. So that, as a consumer, annoys me greatly. Now, as in the business, of course, there's nothing we can do about this. We have to go with the flow. But as a consumer, it annoys me, because we've not even got to grips with 3D or proper HD as it, I mean, it's 1040, 1080 we're showing in Amsterdam, and they call it HD. It's not. So until such time does they actually get one sorted, why are we moving on to the next one? And there's super high HD or something's coming, which is
I think it's
8K.
Japanese,
That's the NHK one that's coming through.
Exactly.
And that's going to be, I think, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, they reckon it's going to come through. So we haven't even drawn breath yet on 4K, and they're giving us double it. Can we tell the difference?
I don't know.
Can we really tell the difference? I'm not sure.
No, and it's true that, I took a production management course, and they were showing, yes, Sony, Panasonic, I shouldn't mention all these brands, but and then Samsung and all these they're the ones who are deciding, really, because they're the ones who are producing all the material, whether it's your tape or your camera and everything that goes down the workflow. So Anita, are you seeing a lot of your clients kind of puzzled by all of this, and how do you relate to?
Completely puzzled, and that's where where Sam says you must rely on our post-production company. Thank you very kindly. We are Sam's post-production company. I'll just come and rattle through this because I know time's going on. It'd be good to have some questions.
Okay.
I'll try
but take your time, take your time. You know.
Well, please let me rattle through. So basically we're content processors for our clients, our TV distributors and film distributors, and our mission is to supply the perfect deliverable and help our clients understand what is a perfect deliverable. So our clients are some household names. Off the Fence, oh my gosh, you didn't even get on the slide, Sam, I'm sorry, that's because I could refer to you personally. All Three Media, BBC Worldwide, BFI, IMG, etc. And these are the broadcasters that we typically deliver into on a daily basis, and increasingly more it's delivery into VOD platforms. And that's its own mission. The VOD platforms are very careful about who they will allow to deliver to them. And thankfully, we're one of the people who can deliver to Netflix, iTunes, etc. And again, that's for TV and film distributors and documentary makers, that's an entire other world and an entire other headache, which we're here to guide them through. So physical versus digital deliveries, I mean, we still have 150,000 tapes in our facility. And interestingly, we are still sending out tapes, but the shift over the last number of years has been predominantly digital. Definitely this year has seen a massive increase in digital deliveries, both to broadcasters. But interestingly, from our digital deliveries, it's interesting how many deals distributors are doing directly with VOD platforms, which has been a big surge for us this year. If we just move on to the next one. You know, almost 40% of our content that we send out the door now is to a VOD platform, accompanying traditional broadcasters. And so I'm going to say something which is contrary to what Ed says, which is some vital statistics about what we have in our building to enable us to do this on behalf of our clients. So, you know, we ingest about 200 hours a day off tape. We've got 5 petabytes of storage. It's like, I thought it's like the biggest beer fridge in the world, but actually it's got LTO tapes in it. We've got 2 lines of dark fiber. So, you know, we've a spare over 20,000 files in and out, possibly in a month. So the thing I have to say about digital does not mean DIY. Paola talked about being collaborative with your technical partners at the outset of making your program, and I'd say that's also happening at every stage, and particularly in distribution, is that it's not so much I'm the supplier, you're my client. We have to collaborate to get it right together, because it's a big, scary world, but it's not that scary. But if we talk together and listen to what the other has to say, and the advice, you know, Sam's been fantastic for us, and his understanding of how to deliver internationally. So it is about collaboration at every single step of the way, from the beginning to the end. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to let you, if any of you have any questions after these presentations, and then we can exchange. And if you have, you know, precise examples, or not examples, but questions that relate to what you're doing now, we'd love to be able to, you know, just get into the concrete exchange. I just have a very stupid question to start. If you produce for iPad, what it is that you have to think about, rather than if you were producing for the BBC? Does it, I mean, because it's an iPad, I mean, sort of that size, not this size. Does it, you know, what do you have to do? I mean, it's digital, it's not
Yeah,
tape.
no, I think one thing that I would like to bring to this, like the elephant in the room kind of thing, but we're talking about, I would not say 2 different worlds, but these are like broadcasters, commissioning, programs, budgets in place. You have to be able to structure what you need, how you do it. Of course, you pick up the phone, you talk to Off the Fence and to Refine. And so all of that is one type of creation, of content creation. It's one side of content. That content creation is, of course, valid and massive. And I'm not here to challenge it. But I think from my perspective, I make films. And my films generally, I want them to be seen in cinemas. I'm still in that other space, which I generally don't finance my films from broadcasters, and some of them I've done for TV, but it's not my main space of operation. And one thing that I think the iPad comes in place for in the case of Silver Goat is because that was a strategic decision of how the film looked, that short range of focus and how you experience a film with something that you look into. The film was almost being framed by the iPad. And that's something you do bring aboard. And one other thing I just wanted to add to a bit of what we were saying just now is I don't think, although when you talk about broadcast, it is a very vertical way of thinking your content. You know, you need 4K HD, you need this, you need that. And actually, I'd like to challenge that, because I think a lot of filmmakers don't like how 4K looks. A lot of filmmakers dislike, like from an aesthetic point of view. And we are seeing films like No, the Chilean film, that I don't know if you managed to see it, which is beautiful, where a filmmaker wanted his film to look like it was shot on VHS. Yeah. And it was an aesthetic decision. So I would say work with your partners, and I have been blessed by, as I was saying before, and I'm sorry, she wasn't here, but Sarah Hill from Prime Focus is here, and I call her like my wizard boss. And in general, like anything, I call her, I pick her brains, and I have the luck to have such amazing partners in Prime Focus through Sarah. And you know, I can barely afford a lot of the things that they offer, but I can always afford, you know, call and request and ask and you know, and try to make it around. But that's a technicality. But then there is the aesthetics, and filmmakers not all want to have their films look like 4K HD broadcast, National Geographic type films. And that's something that I would like to bring here, because we are not all delivering from massive production companies to massive broadcasters. We want to make the films. I mean, filmmakers, producers, we want to produce, we want to create, we want to use technology to our advantage, and as much as we can, of course, we should have our post-production in place, and our specs should be fantastic, and our films should look great. But there is one world of rules, and as they are in broadcast, is very vertical, and another world of how you want your film to look, you know.
Then I would challenge that surely, from a filmmaker standpoint, you know, you want your film to be seen. So,
yeah.
So I take your point about it is about the iPad, but it is, you know, there is so much noise going around on the internet. You know, how do you then, as a filmmaker, what is your challenge? So it's free to air, you find your own community. How do you do that?
Well,
because you do want it to be seen.
That's the challenge, but I think that not everybody wants his film to be seen in National Geographic. Not everyone. I mean, I think that National Geographic is good for a certain audience and a certain type of film, and then, you know, someone was saying last night, oh, POV, 5 million viewers, HBO, 2 million viewers. Well, I did a film with Oliver Stone, and Oliver wanted HBO. Does he want less people to his films? No, he thought that channel was better than 4 million POV, which, I mean, I think is great anyway. I think each film has a community to reach out there, and a house and an audience. We need to think more about audiences and how do we outreach and engage. But this is not about, we're not creating, we meaning the type of producers that work like me, we're not always creating 4K Hollywood blockbusters being seen by 300 million people, and that's not even what I want.
But we agree.
We agree.
We agree fundamentally.
It just needs to be a conscious decision that the filmmaker understands when they make it, that I make this kind of film, but it rules out those opportunities, but gives me these opportunities, and that the filmmaker completely understands that decision when they come to it.
But when you're talking about, for example, the increase in delivery to VOD platforms, Anita, I mean, do a VOD platform, because I have a friend who's a distributor, and she says if you're dealing with one, they'll have certain requirements. They might even want you to do the entire marketing for your show on their platform, but that's a different story. But do they, I mean, even creatively, if you're producing for a smaller screen like a VOD rather than a, you know, TV, or I don't know, maybe TVs allow you VOD anyway. But, you know, are there differences now in the way the VOD platforms are engaging
well, in terms of,
with
you know, in terms
content?
of delivery, you know, by far, technically the most extensive is Apple and iTunes, and once you've hit that, you are more or less capable of delivering. Once you can meet their spec technically, you can do absolutely everything else from here on in. But I think what is going to be interesting, the next shift over the next couple of years is, you know, Apple's emerged, Netflix, Love Film here in the UK, and Blinkbox. Obviously, Tesco started to spend their money with Blinkbox, so that's going to be an interesting challenge, and it's very much, they're taking it towards a club card and the points, and is it lifestyle? So as all those platforms are there and they're now getting some traction, they're going to have to change about how they reach their audience and how they decide what their audience is, and they're going to have to start curating content for the audience that they want. But, you know, they're the people who know what sells. So I think there are going to be some interesting changes about how those speak to their audiences and how they define what their audiences are, and therefore that will probably put a limit on the content that they'll be taking over the next couple of years. Because we can't all watch the same thing in every place. There has to be something that makes us want to go to a Netflix versus a Blinkbox. So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
By the way, I tried to have iTunes come to Sheffield because I wanted them to speak to in a couple of other panels, and they said iTunes does not speak in any festivals whatsoever.
Apple doesn't speak
Yeah,
anywhere outside Apple.
anywhere, exactly. And Netflix was very far away, and they said, well, if we come on this side of the ocean, we'll consider, but otherwise we're kind of very busy elsewhere. So we tried, you know.
I think curation is the key, like something that she was saying, you know, the platforms and who's going to watch where. I'll be careful from a producer perspective to just look at what sells. I think we need to know, I go back to technical specs, but I also go back to who's your audience, what film are you making, and who do you want to curate your film? Do you want your film to be curated by Tesco, or you want your film to be curated by MoMA? They are different curators. And one will offer you probably more money, and maybe if you need to do X, Y, and Z, and that's super expensive, you will need that more money. But maybe your film is another film, and it needs...
I think there's space for everybody, and that's
definitely.
great. I mean, this is
Totally.
great. And what I really, you know, was moved by what you had said also is, you know, to rescue a film. I'm sure that people 20 years ago didn't, or maybe 30 years ago, didn't think about necessarily the way we look at the complexity of things. And I think that just that, you know, the heritage, as you were saying, the need to save our talents or our past talents. And then this morning there were students from film school. So they have to juggle with all that and preserve it. So that because it is, I think we all work with passion, and that's what we need to convey to newcomers. But it is true that it is about where's your audience. What story you want to tell it and to whom you want to tell it.
With the film preservation, it's an interesting example because the market was telling us that Burroughs the movie, which to me was a super relevant film that needed to be seen, that the general marketing rules or distributors that will take those things were not responsive. Like, I wouldn't find a distributor who said, well, how much money do you need to restore this film? 100? Of course, I'll give it to you, and then we'll start discounting when I sell the film. They would expect the film, sure, when you have it, come back to me. And my problem was, no, I need to rescue this film. Who believes in the cultural relevance of this film? And the answer is the audiences. The audiences who like to see the film again, so they rally behind this film. We did a small Kickstarter campaign for $20,000, and it wasn't even about the money. It was about the outreach, and it was about how to engage those audiences and how to have a relevant film again. So suddenly there was press in Russia, press in China, press in the US, 3 times Huffington Post, that I would have never been able to have if I went directly with that film to the distributors thinking, this is about how many units can you sell. But this is a film about a cult writer who is going to be 100 years birthday anniversary next year, and not about the writer of 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, but I've seen some very beautiful films on television that were made for television. I think art is a medium that is popular, but it's not antithesis to art.
No, this film was originally made with a TV partner.
Yeah, I personally, have worked with French producers and English producers who really make, what I think are just most beautiful documentaries, and you strive to sell them elsewhere. But it's not. I think I think the issue is again starting right from the very first day and thinking, what do I want to do with my film, where I want it to be seen, and if to do that I need to do certain things, then I'll just have to go through the process. I think that's, Edward, in the filmmakers that you encounter, because you acquire for your company too, do you find that there is a greater attention to out there? Because again, going back to that comment that person made, is let producers produce for whatever commissioning channel or whatever, and I said, okay, yeah, sure, but don't you want to, just continue a little bit down that route? So,
do you mean in terms of technical or in terms of
Well, in terms of
publicity or-
exchanging, it's sort of saying, you know, it's openness. I find this is what really it's all about. It's just openness, understanding, and saying, okay, I know what I need to do. Is this what I want to do? And do I go down that route? Or you're finding people are more receptive?
Most filmmakers come to us exhausted, broke, you know, just ready to quit. And they just want to give us what they've got and let us run with it. And I mean, we will always do our best to make the best of what we get, but there are some things you just can't work without. And that's what I'd say is, you know, there are levels. So there's the very least that you can operate with, and then there's what refined get you. And you know, you've got to be able to find where you fit in that, you know, and that's going to be different for every filmmaker. You know, that's a different journey for every one of them. You know, and like Anita was saying, you know, iTunes will fail you on a single drop frame, you know, whereas if you sell to a small Polish broadcaster, they're going to be, you know, they'll let you put black over subtitles. But you know, they're all different outlets, and you've just got to understand that, you know, with what you've got, there are certain opportunities, and those go away, you know, if you don't have them. And so you've got to, your expectations have to match what's there. Yeah. That's what I'd say.
That's very well said, yeah.
You were talking to me on the phone when we first spoke about Emir Kusturica working with not film but digital tapes, and he was anyway. You were exchanging on that, and you just, you know, somebody who's come from a very classic filmmaking and who's just gone and picked up all the technology revolution and is somewhat, or do you want to share about? You want to
I don't know
talk
if to
about
put
this?
it that way, but well, as I was saying before, not all of my films are super broke, of course. But I do work with auteurs mainly, and one of my bigger auteurs is Emir Kusturica, which you may know in the UK, but for those who don't, he is one of the 6 filmmakers who won Cannes twice, and he won Berlin and Berlinale and Venice, and he's a very revered filmmaker, and he hasn't done a fiction feature film in 7 years, and a lot of people are expecting his next one, and I am honored to be his producer. This is the first time he's going to make a feature film in Alexa, and he's done films in film always, and that was a major leap for him. And the way I, as a producer, guided that process, I think, or I want to believe I helped guide it, is we did a short film first on the Alexa, so he could manage that technology and see how great it was. And so, yeah, he really liked it, and now his first film is going to be, and I think that he understood how nimble, like having a smaller crew, and how that could really help him creatively. But then again, it's what I was saying just now, is about the creativity, not just the tech spec. I think having a smaller crew and a more movable feast, is better for creativity sometimes than having, you know, but it depends, of course.
What I'd add to that is that, I mean, we get certain films that couldn't be made any other way. You know, secret filming, or, you know, like you need hidden cameras.
Exactly.
And that, I mean, and I think that is understandable, and that's something you can work with. But it's still important, once you have that raw material at that level, to make sure that that's the best it can be. Yeah. And that's, I mean, I think that's mainly what I would say.
Yeah, I think what you were saying about filmmakers getting to you really exhausted, which is cool. I would really encourage any producer out there, any filmmaker out there, to really think it's technology well, but also his audience strategy and his outreach. I mean, to me, everything is intertwined. The way you sell films cannot be through an aggregator only. The way you show films cannot be only through a TV channel. You have to understand hybrid distribution. You have to understand theatrical, non-theatrical, education, webinars, activities, art installations. You have to understand a whole myriad of things that are around films, and we call them ancillary rights, but actually those ancillary rights need to come at the beginning. So you partner with a lot of people, and technology and technicalities are one of those elements. And you gotta think, even if you come to the conclusion that this is gonna be too expensive, so I have to nimble around it. And sometimes you have to make the film you can, of course.
But this is one of the reasons I think why it was a good idea to have a panel on technology here, because it's often a lot about the business side. You know, we had a panel on the business of VOD and where you're going to get money to make your film. But that's part of as you say, and we are 100% and more. It's part of it. But it's not a side. It's not some scary thing, which I always thought there was really scary stuff, and God, I shouldn't, you know. And then I remember once meeting a small French company, and I think there's another Canadian that do CGI, mainly with drama, but they've moved into all the documentary. Maybe not the creative, really, but, you know, why not? Where they do backgrounds, you know, so if you want like a whole crowd, and you can't afford to film a crowd, you'll go and see your CGI company, and they'll see how they can, or put a background, or whatever, but, you know, and they said, we need to be part of your script writing at the very early stage, and see how we can, you know, come into your film, and create. It's actually in a historical documentary that they were showing us how they, some of the scenes of like historical events that needed to be somewhat not reconstructed, but give a little bit of an evocation of what had happened. And they said, we need to be there from the start. And they weren't manipulating the story. They weren't, you know, they would just say, we're a tool. We're a tool to help you tell your story. If you can't afford to go and hire or not, you know, find the like say the building, the monument where some particular event took place, we're going to help you recreate it. And so with CGI, that needs to be included right from the early start. Are any of you currently producing a film and struggling with some? Yes. Does it, I mean, I'm reaching out to you. Gentleman in the back. Sorry, we'll let the.
But we're not struggling.
We're not struggling. Oh, well, good.
That's good.
You want to share what you're doing, or?
Well, I can't really, because we don't share information about upcoming projects before they're announced.
Yeah, maybe if anyone has a question.
Well, then everybody has a question.
I'm very interested in. We've approached the film very much from a consumer point of view. We've identified an audience first, written a script for the audience. And I take that last point very seriously, because every member of every component of the film is involved in the script, right from the start. The script meetings actually involve VFX, CGI, everybody. There's only one script writer who actually ends up writing, but they can't. They're not no longer put in a room and said, "Go and write a script," because we don't feel that way. We actually don't come from the film background. We're internet publishers, and we've spotted a niche or some problems in the film world, and we think there's potential for us to make money out of joining some of the things we've learned about e-marketing, publishing, retail, and bringing that to the film world.
Well, there.
And out of that, we're actually supporting about 3 or 4 independent filmmakers, and we're driving them through a business process.
Super.
Of producing a film.
Fabulous.
And so you say that you've written it very much with knowing your audience, and once it's created in its piece, do you then know how to reach those audiences?
You start with that.
Yeah.
That's where we start.
Yeah. Do you work with an outreach strategist in the room? Who is your audience reach out type person?
We're marketing people by definition, so we're using our marketing techniques, but we specialise in e-marketing. We've got a project, for instance, that publishes, if anybody's heard of Scores on the Doors, that's one of our projects. We do 2.5 million lookups a month. Our marketing budget per year is less than 5,000. That's the sort of return on investment that we expect now from marketing. And I know that would be very interesting.
Even
to the
massive distributors forget about marketing. Coming from the record industry, we always used to have this joke about how many CDs or albums would we let escape this month? And I think, you know, distributors are doing exactly the same thing. You throw it on a VOD platform, great, it's on iTunes. You have to let people know it's on iTunes. Come on, you have to direct your audiences. So, yeah, I really, really applaud what you're doing.
In a more independent view, like for us, we're talking about 50-50. It's like 50% what you use to make your film and 50% of what you use in terms of budget to let your film be seen. Like that, you know, that type of model is what is working for us. And sometimes that 50% is used not in traditional P&A, is used in outreach strategists and impact producers and creation of extra content and other, you know, other materials that will make your film a bigger thing than just one film.
One of the big things about the way we look at it is it's a marketing exercise. So the film isn't just the product. So, for instance, we take an idea from the first idea, and we're already marketing that film before a word of the script has been written. And we're also producing merchandising for that film. Yeah. So as we contact people and they become interested in the concept of the film, they actually buy into it by buying product. We're already building a brand. So by the time the film is actually going to market, you've got an audience already there, ready-made. Again, I can't tell you until it's launched, which is 3 months. But you will see it everywhere, I can guarantee.
Like your company is not on your badge?
No.
Definitely. Do we have to buy a product on the way out to figure out what your name is? Is that how it goes?
That's maybe how we make like 5,000. Cool.
You were saying, yes, very much so, recognizing the reality of the need of promoting, of telling. How do you do this?
I mean, I mean, it depends on the film. So, you know, if you take a case study with a film about wingsuit diving, and it's simple. It's social networking, it's blogs, it's reviewers, it's finding the people who could be interested in that film and letting them know it's there. It's not brain science, but it really is just about, you know, like you were saying, identifying that audience and finding the right way to reach them, and that can be done through myriad ways, and it doesn't have to be costly, especially with e-marketing.
Yeah, well, I kind of challenge that. I think that one thing is outreach, which is that, and the other thing is audience engagement, and just by putting social and reviewers and all that doesn't happen. So I will be one of those people who can say, like, one of those people who say, you have a distributor, fine, don't give them your website. If they want to do a distributor's website, fine, but you do your audience engagement from the knowledge from the producer. The impact producer, I think there is a lot of education that needs to happen at the distribution side, and this is another table, but I think that the distributors are doing a lot of blog and this, but that is not engaging audiences. That is outreach, and is a different thing.
But is that the job of the distributor?
No, it's the producers and
that's
it
their
needs
client's
to happen
job.
early on.
It
needs to happen early on, and it needs to happen from the producers. And the idea that you reach a distributor tired, exhausted, giving everything you have, kind of like do whatever with it, is what I'm trying to tell my colleagues in the room to not reach to that point.
No, I totally
because
agree.
I think that's where you lose.
Absolutely
That's where
agree.
you lose everything you have. Like basically your film is going to be marketed in a catalog, and your film is your film, the creation of a lot of things, but just a film.
It depends what the. It depends
Yeah.
what the
From
producer
where
wants to
I
do
come,
with
from
the
where I
programme,
come,
of
from
course.
my
You know,
perspective, from where I come.
We've got various types of programming we take in. We have the ones that are made from the heart. You know, we have producers that will say, I don't really care about how much money we make. I just want you to get that out there. I want that on as many platforms.
Yes.
Well, give it away. Give it away. I don't care. Give it away. You know.
Totally.
So it's eyes that they're wanting. Others, I'll tell you, they think it's going to make millions. And you look at it, you go, it's never, you'll be lucky to make 50,000 from this worldwide.
Totally.
But they think it's their baby, of course, and they see it in a different way, and they think it's going to be huge.
No.
Other titles for no apparent reason sell really, really well, and there's actually no rhyme or reason to it. It just strikes a chord. So there's different kinds. Yes. But as a distributor, we do our PR and our marketing to a captive audience. We do that to the the broadcasters, we market to them. We don't market to the. In fact, that would be almost suicide for the program.
Yeah,
if we
yeah.
We've had programs where we take them in, we go through the whole process, we start pitching to all the clients, and then we find out it's up on YouTube in its entirety.
Yeah.
And we'll look at it and go, that's just killed your program. It's killed it commercially.
Yeah.
Now, it's of course tons of hits, and of course it's being seen. So it just really depends what you want to do.
No, but that's why I was saying this is almost like two different worlds.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
like I speak with my sales agent in New York, and they were the other day saying to me, if it's not on the internet, it means that you're not cool. So if they cracked your program, your film already, it's there. It's just you're so really cool, and that is a radical thinking, but these guys do independent filmmaking, and that's how they think, and I admire them as well for that. But it's two different things, I think, like broadcasting, TV, and this other world of independent crazy filmmakers in a way.
I don't think they're going to stay two different worlds for very long. I mean, we've all traditional methods of distribution and broadcast they're merging. There are no rules for the future, so they can't we can't stay in our own little sheltered silos. We have to understand what the other's doing.
I don't think we stay in our shelter spaces. It's very clear that when it comes to broadcasting 20-part series, the players are 20, 25. They're not hundreds. And when it comes to creating independent films, there are hundreds. Yeah. So who is there a side against another side? Well, not really. It's just we do different things. We really do different things. It's a different conception. Technicalities may differ, change, what, how. But I think we are doing different things. I do. And things have to do, of course, with legislations and like day and date and all those things that, for example, in Europe are not going to advance as much as in the US because the legislation needs to change. So how you present your film and when and where and film festivals and all that. But I do think it's different. Not against, but different.
Do people agree or disagree about this different world? I don't know. I find that there is a lot of leaking into all these worlds together. They're much more moving, and but I know where you're coming from, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to be with us today. Sort of, obviously with your talent and your experience, but it was also challenging. And we also, for a distributor, people would say, well, stay a distributor and let us do other things. To each their own little parts of this big puzzle. And I think the fact it is that there are all these different platforms, because broadcast is just one of them, and it is changing again. I keep going back to that, but I picked up an article. I think a lady has a question. Oh, you do? Question?
Yeah, she has a
I didn't hear you. I didn't see your arm. Oh, you have even a microphone. You're ready.
No,
go
no
for it. Sorry, I'll go for it. Yes.
It's fine. I mean, Paula asked if we were agreeing with whatever all the panelists are talking, and I agreed 100%, but I could add that coming from a very special country at these days, from Spain, we count on the international partner. Beside whatever you have said, it's 100% true. I mean, 10 years ago, all the marketing strategies, testing audiences on TV and on theatrical, everything is what we teach in our universities and schools in Spain. But now, the only thing we have in our hands is being linked to an international partner outside. Because as per the figures and the rapports from all the producers, Spanish producers, we just have a return when distributing outside, because there is no audience. I mean theatrically, okay? TV, it's strong, but in terms of business, but the money comes from what we sell outside. So we are not in a hurry. I mean, I talk about my production company. We are stepping and working forward slowly slowly, because I come from a very slowly, quiet island, Mallorca. And so imagine that they are not in a hurry. I mean,
But I'm not talking about audience testing, what I'm saying is quite different. And that's where there is a huge hole in knowledge that needs to be filled quite soon, I think. It's not that what I'm saying. I'm talking about audience engagement, which is very different. It's absolutely nothing to do with audience test.
No, I follow you.
Yeah.
I mean, we maybe it's more related with crowdfunding and huge campaigns of marketing.
No. That's why I think it's a huge void in how we engage with our audiences and how we, for independent filmmaking. Then again, this is, for me, that's why this is different. You create huge marketing and audience tests a lot in TV. And you have that budget and you do it. And for independent filmmakers, it's about engaging your audiences early on in your process, to know who they are, to create it's like creating a movement. Your film is part of the creation of a movement when you're in an independent space. And then your film is bigger than just a film. It's not necessarily part of a catalog. The film is like one thing, and there are many things around it. And that's what I mean by audience engagement. You need to get not only fans on a Facebook page, but people really moving themselves for and with the film.
I understood. I think I follow you.
Yeah.
I think I follow you because it's what is happening with our project, which we don't have still the backup of the institutions because there is no public money anymore. But that's why it's growing and it's moving forward because there are audience. We know what is our target.
Yeah.
So that's why we are still alive and believing in our projects.
Of course.
Okay. But I think certainly in France, when you're talking about scheduling of a documentary, and this is what a lot of public channels who in France show creative documentaries, is that they realize that if you're not reaching out to your audience in advance, they might not even know the film is there. I mean, I'm exaggerating the description, but there's more and more, because I've met a lot of public broadcasters actually in even other parts of Europe who say we need to communicate to our audiences before. So they will use Facebook, and look at what Channel 4 is doing actually in just reaching out to their communities, and there might not be excessively identified communities, but if you're going to be doing a film on a subject that is really strong but has a fairly, focused subject, if you're not reaching out to that community, you're not going to get it.
Exactly.
And it's not between 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. that you're going to do it. So it's that buzz, it's social media. So that's perhaps also where TV comes to you, is that, they will passionately put on, all their energy and money and whatever into making that event really something that people can share and feel and engage and it might even change the way they think about the world.
But as Sam was saying, not every producer wants that. And I'm just speaking from this, but I understand a lot of producers are producing hundreds of films a year, and they don't even have the time to do it or get involved.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we just have a few last minutes, so just checking again with any of you if you've got an answer. Otherwise, we can just wrap up, and unless there's any points that we've missed. I mean, there's lots more we could go on about, but not go on, but
all night long.
We might go and have a drink and discuss it. We can have a drink later on and discuss it more.
Maybe I'll share one thing for the Spanish hope bit, but one project that really caught my attention in the last Cannes Film Festival is a project that Walbanch, who is a French agent, that is my sales agent for the current film, is picked up from an internet phenomenon. And they share with me, really proud, this film that they're going to make. It's comedy, nothing to do with documentary. But is basically a film that they're making with a French guy who has a YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel has such massive levels of engagement. It's not just the amount of people that watch it. It's the amount of people that share the content, the amount of people that involve in dialogue on Twitter, on real things, because then the guy started creating live things. And that same project as a comedy, without all that massive audience rallying behind him, would be a really tiny project, not one picked up by one of the biggest sales agents in Europe. And now they are creating this project that already has an audience built in. And this film is going to be a lot bigger. So that is what I mean. This is like a very straightforward example and an easy one to explain, but that's what I mean by audience engagement. And that was a one-man band. That was a guy doing comedy on his own with a tiny flip cam.
Well, thank you very much. I have a few thanks. I want to thank you three wonderful production, technical team. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to thank you all for making the
very much for coming.
time.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Documentary Campus for making this session possible. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.